You ever notice how silence gets loud right before something breaks? The number stayed on the screen longer than it needed to. $700,000. Big font, centered. Like it was the point of the meeting. $700,000 just to sit and stare at a computer. The words landed flat, then sharp. Someone snorted. Not loud. Just enough to let me know I wasn't imagining it. I didn't look around. I kept my eyes on the table. The coffee in my hand smelled burnt, the way it always did when procurement cut corners. Even that felt on brand. I should have said something. That's the part I still argue with myself about. I should have pushed back, or at least smiled. I did neither. I froze. Which, honestly, is kind of my thing when I'm processing something bigger than it looks. Instead, I asked one question. Not emotional, not defensive, just specific. Before this gets finalized, did your lawyer read Article 12? Section 7. A pause. Long enough to feel intentional. Then the smile. Tight. Easy. The kind people use when they think they've already won. My lawyer reviewed it, that was it. No follow-up, no curiosity, no request for clarification. Just confidence. And that's when my stomach dropped. Not fear, not panic, recognition. Because anyone who had actually read that clause wouldn't have answered that fast. My name is Rachel. 46 years old. I've been in rooms like this most of my career. Rooms where decisions are framed as logic and numbers, not people. I've learned to spot the moment when someone mistakes certainty for understanding. It's subtle, usually shows up right before damage. I watched her lean back, already moving on, already done with me. And I realized something else, sitting there with burnt coffee and my hands way too still. She wasn't cutting a cost. She was touching something she didn't understand, with both hands, while looking the other way. You ever watch someone step forward while looking backward near the end of that meeting? While people shuffled papers and avoided eye contact. I made a quiet note to myself. Not dramatic, just factual. The kind I always make. I had warned them, clearly, in writing. About one specific clause, what happened next wouldn't be an argument, it would be a consequence. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge ATC. It is inspired by patterns, not real people, and meant to explore how power, arrogance, and silence collide when no one slows down to ask the right question. When the meeting finally moved on, no one looked back at me. I stayed seated a second longer than everyone else, staring at that empty screen, already feeling the shift. Something had started, whether they noticed or not. How do you explain a job that only matters when everything goes wrong? I don't lead with titles. Titles get people bored. I lead with moments. A call at 10:47 at night. Someone whispering because they're still at the office and don't want their team to hear the panic. A contract that's ready to go, then suddenly not. A partner who's about to pull out and doesn't because one sentence lands the right way. Hold it. I told Mark from legal once. Palm up, not loud. He froze mid-sentence like I'd hit pause. The vendor had slipped a clause in the revision. Small, nasty. Mark hadn't seen it yet. He nodded, shut his laptop, waited. That deal didn't blow up. Nobody thanked anyone. That's how it usually goes. People thought I checked things. I let them think that. Correcting it took time and energy and never changed the outcome. If I did my job right, nothing happened, no alerts, no meetings, no headlines. My office always smelled faintly like printer toner and old paper. The kind of smell that sticks to your clothes if you stay late. I liked it. It meant I was in the middle of something that mattered. The CEO never asked what broke if I disappeared. Not once. She asked how fast we could move. She asked what could be automated. She asked why this role existed at all. She didn't ask what it protected. Can this be streamlined, she'd say, tapping her pen like the answer was hiding under the table. Some parts, I'd answer. Careful. Some parts shouldn't. She'd already be looking at her screen by then. That part hurt more than the joke in the meeting. Not the money comment, the assumption. The way she talked around me instead of to me. Be honest. Would you have asked either that afternoon? I paused a renewal. No announcement, no drama. I sent one line to a partner contact I trusted. He replied with a single word. Good. I saved the file. Closed it. Logged the note the way I always did. Quiet, Precise. When I shut my laptop, the room felt thinner somehow, like something important had been moved without anyone noticing. What else are you supposed to do besides warn them I wrote the email the way lawyers like things? Clean, dry, boring on purpose. No drama to argue with later, just facts lined up like they couldn't dodge. One clause, one trigger, one consequence. I stared at the last paragraph longer than the rest. My fingers hovered. I almost softened it. Almost added a sentence that sounded friendly. Almost apologized for being cautious. I deleted that part, left the language sharp and plain. If my role was removed or materially changed without the required process, the clause activated automatically. No discretion, no delay, immediate acceleration, immediate exposure. I read it twice. Sent it. The reply came back fast, too fast to be real. Reviewed, covered. 2 words. Period at the end. That detail stuck with me. No meeting request followed, no call, no assistant asking for time. Nothing that suggested curiosity or concern. Just closure. Artificial closure, like slamming a door without checking who was on the other side. My hands shook a little after that. I hate that part. The shaking. It always feels like betrayal, like my body reacting before my brain finishes catching up. I set the phone down, waited, picked it back up, still nothing. Later that afternoon, I ran into Greg from operations near the elevators. He gave me that look people give when they know something's off but don't want to be involved. They moving fast, he muttered, eyes on the floor numbers. Fast is fine, I answered. Blind isn't. He didn't smile. That told me enough. I forwarded the email to myself, labeled it clearly, saved a copy where it always went, logged the time, logged the acknowledgement. That habit had saved me before. I wasn't about to break it now. Is it dramatic to hope someone proves you wrong by the end of the day? A calendar invite appeared for the following week, strategic review. Required attendees only. My name was on it, no agenda attached. I shut my laptop, stood up, left the office without saying goodbye to anyone. Why would a company ever protect one person this much? I remember the year everything almost collapsed. Nobody announced it. It just showed up in small ways. A partner went quiet. A report stalled. People stopped joking in the hallways. The carpet had been cleaned too many times that week, and the smell hung low and sour, like something trying to cover itself up. Investors panicked quietly. That was the tell. No emails in all caps, no threats, just short messages asking for confirmation, asking who had eyes on what. Legal didn't panic at all. They closed doors. They asked for timelines. They asked who could keep things steady if something slipped. That's when my name started showing up in rooms I wasn't in. Key person risk, someone from outside counsel muttered during one call, like it tasted bad. Nobody argued with him. They asked what it would take to make that risk survivable. The clause came out of that, not as a favor, as math. If the company lost the role that held certain relationships and approvals together, there had to be friction, cost, time, something heavy enough to slow people down. I didn't fight for it. That's important. I didn't threaten to leave. I didn't demand leverage. They offered it, slid across the table like a fire extinguisher. You hope you never touch. This isn't about you, the general counsel said back then, eyes tired, voice flat. It's about making sure nobody makes a fast decision they can't undo. I nodded, agreed, signed, went back to work. Funny how safety looks like arrogance later. Years passed. Leadership changed. Memories thinned out. The clause stayed where it always was, quiet and uninteresting, like a circuit breaker nobody labels because it never flips. Last week, when I brought it up again, it didn't sound familiar to them. It sounded inconvenient, like something old that should have been cleaned up already. When the calendar invite for the review meeting hit my inbox, I opened the attachment this time. There it was in black and white. Role transition, efficiency alignment, no mention of process, no mention of approval. I closed the document and sat there longer than I meant to. Not angry, just aware. The kind of awareness that comes when you recognize a mistake forming in slow motion and realize nobody left in the room knows how to stop it. You ever walk into a room and feel late to your own ending? HR was already there. 2 folders on the table. My name printed on both spines, neat and final. That part landed harder than I expected. Seeing yourself labeled before anyone speaks does something to your head. The CEO didn't stand when I came in. She didn't need to. One of the HR reps slid a chair back with her foot, like this was already rehearsed. The air smelled like dry markers and someone's cologne that tried too hard. I focused on that instead of my hands. We want to thank you for your contributions over the years. Past tense. Right out of the gate. Another voice followed, softer. Careful. This isn't about performance. Nobody asked how I was doing. Nobody asked if I had questions yet. They kept moving, one sentence stacked on top of another, like speed would make it feel cleaner. A page turned, then another. I recognized the sound. Severance terms, transition language, a timeline that assumed I was listening instead of counting. We're aligning roles to better support efficiency going forward. I waited for the pause, the moment where I'd be invited in. It never came. One of the HR reps glanced at the CEO, then back at the page. Her finger tapped once on the paper. Like a cue. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a meeting. It was a script. I could have interrupted. I could have argued. I could have reminded them of the email, the clause, the acknowledgement, all of it. But watching them talk around me, not to me, made something settle, calm, cold, clear. I closed my folder before they finished their sentence. The sound was louder than I meant it to be. Heads lifted. The rhythm broke. I think we're done here, I said, standing up, not angry, not loud, just finished. The CEO opened her mouth, stopped. That was new. I walked out without taking the papers, left them exactly where they were, my name still facing up, already written in a tense they hadn't earned. Is it still losing if you pick the moment I didn't raise my voice? That surprised them more than if I had. The room was still mid-sentence, someone explaining next steps like I was supposed to sit there and take notes. I reached into my bag and slid the envelope onto the table. Plain, no label, no drama. Just paper meeting wood. The badge came off next. The clip resisted for half a second, then gave. Plastic hit the table with a sharp sound that cut through the talking. That finally did it. Everyone stopped. I hated how calm I felt. That scared me more than anger ever does. Anger means you're still negotiating. Calm means you're done. This isn't a termination. Someone tried, too fast. We're discussing a transition. I stayed standing. Let the silence stretch. Let them feel it. I'm not transitioning, I said. The words felt solid. Heavy in a good way. I'm leaving. A chair shifted. Someone inhaled like they were about to object, then didn't. The CEO's smile came back for a second, thin and automatic, then slipped. We haven't finalized anything, she said. Finally looking up at me. That's why this matters. I answered, tapping the envelope once. Not hard, just enough. Everything you need is in there. Legal reached for it without asking. Old habit. The CEO noticed too late. This is where people expect shouting, I added, already backing toward the door. Sorry to disappoint. I didn't wait for permission, didn't wait for a response. The conversation behind me restarted in pieces, not quite fitting back together. In the hallway, I exhaled for the first time all day. Not relief, release, different thing. By the time I reached the elevator, my phone buzzed. Then again, I didn't look. I already knew what it would say. When the doors closed, I caught my reflection in the metal. Steady, tired, certain. I hadn't won anything, not yet. But I'd chosen the moment, and that choice couldn't be undone. Can you hear power move? I wasn't in the room anymore when it happened. Not physically, but I knew the moment it did. You can feel that kind of shift, even from down the hall. Later, Mark from legal told me how it went. He didn't dramatize it. He didn't have to. They opened the envelope. Someone skimmed too fast, then had to start over. Slower this time. Slower again. Legal always slows down when something starts to look expensive. A throat cleared, then again, same person. Too many times to be nothing. The CEO leaned forward at first, still confident, still in control. Then she leaned back. That smile she'd been carrying around all week didn't make it past the first paragraph. This can't be right, she muttered, tapping the page like it might change. Mark didn't look up. He kept reading. Another voice tried to interrupt. Something about intent, about expectations, about how this wasn't supposed to happen this way. Legal didn't stop. The clause did exactly what it was written to do. No interpretation, No wiggle room. The words didn't care who was in the room or how recently they'd been hired. Someone asked how long they had. Mark finally looked up then. "You don't," he said. Flat. It already triggered. That's when the room changed. Chairs shifted. Papers stopped moving. The air went stale fast, like stress sweat you can't air out. The CEO stopped talking entirely. She just stared at the table. Like the grain might explain something if she followed it long enough. Nobody mentioned my name again after that. They didn't need to. I wasn't the problem anymore. I was the cause. Ever notice silence only scares people with something to lose? When I got the call, it went to voicemail. Then another. Then a text that just said, "Please call me." I didn't. By the time I reached my car, my phone was face down on the passenger seat, buzzing itself tired. I started the engine and pulled out without looking back. No one stopped me because there was nothing left to stop. The decision had already done its work. Can one decision really cost that much? My phone vibrated until it went warm in my hand. I didn't answer. I set it face down and let it rattle the table like it was trying to escape. A message slipped through anyway. One line. No punctuation. It's bad. By 8:30, the calls stacked up. Numbers I recognized, numbers I didn't. The first voicemail was from legal, voice tight, moving too fast. The second was an assistant trying to sound calm and failing. The third came from an investor liaison who never called directly unless something had already gone sideways. I listened to one message, just one. "We need clarity on exposure," the voice said, clipped and controlled, immediate. I didn't call back. By mid-morning, people stopped pretending this was a misunderstanding. The language shifted. No more process or alignment. Now it was obligations and acceleration. Someone used the word automatic like it tasted bitter. A text popped up from Mark. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then finally, it's not one number. It's layers. That tracked. The clause was designed that way. Deferred compensation accelerated. Equity adjustments recalculated. Partner agreements checked for continuity language. Every layer tugged the next. Not one explosion. Just dominoes falling in sequence, clean and unstoppable. Another voicemail came in, this one sharper. "We need you on the call," a voice insisted, trying authority like a tool that usually worked. "This can still be managed." I let it play out, didn't respond. By noon, the tone changed again. Quieter, smaller. Someone asked if I'd consider consulting for continuity. Another asked if I'd be willing to clarify intent. No one apologized. No one laughed now. This is the part nobody imagines while laughing at a number. In the afternoon, an investor memo leaked. I didn't read it, I didn't need to. The damage was already moving through the system, doing exactly what it was built to do. I turned my phone back over. Let it rest. The vibration stopped on its own. When confidence signs the wrong line, the bill doesn't argue. It just arrives. What does accountability look like when it's quiet? The announcement came out on a Friday afternoon. Carefully timed, carefully worded. The CEO's departure framed as a mutual decision tied to a failure in oversight. No names in the body, no blame. Just enough distance to pretend this was orderly. Money moved the same way. Not loudly, not all at once. Accounts adjusted, obligations met. Titles vanished from email signatures overnight. People who used to walk fast suddenly took the long way around the floor. I didn't testify. No one asked me to. I didn't negotiate either. That surprised a few people. One of them tried anyway, catching me between meetings like we were old friends. "We'd really value your perspective," he offered, voice low. Just to help stabilize things, I let the silence do the work. He nodded, like he understood something he hadn't before, and stepped back. A week later, I started in a new office across town. Smaller team, fewer layers. The walls smelled like fresh paint and unopened boxes. I didn't love it yet. It felt temporary, like I hadn't decided whether to stay or keep moving. Mark checked in once, just a text. "You okay?" I answered with one word, settling. That was true enough. People kept trying to frame it for me. Justice, karma, strategy, none of those fit. The company didn't fall apart. It adjusted. It paid. It learned, maybe. Or maybe it just survived. I stopped being the thing that absorbed the risk. That's all, in quieter moments. I caught myself replaying the meeting, the laugh, the pause, the smile that didn't last. I wondered how many decisions like that get made every day without consequences attached. Distance helped, not all at once, just enough to breathe without bracing. I left the office early one evening and didn't check my phone until I was home. No missed calls, no new messages. The noise had moved on without me. What remained was the space where protection used to sit. What do you keep when you stop holding everything together? I still think about that laugh. Not the sound of it, the timing, the way it landed before anyone checked the ground underneath it. That part sticks. I didn't win. I exited. There's a difference, even if people pretend there isn't. Winning comes with noise, applause, a speech somebody else writes for you. This came with quiet, a signature, a door closing the right way. A former colleague ran into me a few weeks later, same posture, new title. Looks like things worked out for you, he said, like that was the point. I shrugged. Didn't correct him. Let him keep the version that made sense to him. They thought they cut a cost. That's what the slide said. That's what the joke was about. A number that felt big until it wasn't connected to anything real. They never asked what soaked up the damage when things went sideways. They never asked who made the bad calls survivable. I stopped being that thing. There was a moment, late one night, when someone from the old board called, not angry, not defensive, tired. We should have slowed down, he admitted. We didn't. I let that sit. Let him carry it. The truth is, I don't know yet if I'd do it the same way again. I know what it cost them. I also know what it cost me. Not money. Something quieter. Belonging, maybe. Or the illusion of it. Here's the life lesson I walked out with, whether I wanted it or not. If you spend your career absorbing risk for other people, they'll forget it hurts until you stop. When you step aside, the damage doesn't disappear. It just lands where it always should have.
He pointed at the intern. Not me. This kind of work is only suited for men. No buildup. No warning. The words landed and stayed there. I was already on my feet with my notes half folded. Like muscle memory kicked in before my brain did. He skipped my name the way people skip a typo. The intern went stiff. A couple of heads dipped toward the table. Nobody laughed. Nobody corrected him. I smiled anyway. I swear I don't know why. It just happened. The click of his pen cut the air. Loud, final. My name is Matilda Hargreave. 41 years old. I've learned to read rooms fast. I could feel the temperature drop without anyone touching the thermostat. My notes felt heavier than paper. I kept them steady because shaking would have meant something. I wasn't ready to mean anything yet. He kept talking. Vision, speed, fresh perspective. The intern nodded too many times. Someone shifted a chair back a few inches and stopped. I stayed still. The smile held, barely. I didn't feel angry. That scared me. Anger would have been familiar, useful. What I felt was blank. Like a switch flipped off behind my eyes. The part of me that usually patched things over went quiet. No fixing, no smoothing. Just quiet. He glanced down the table, already moving on, past me, past 10 years of fixing what other people broke, past the late nights that never made it into slides. The intern cleared his throat and didn't speak. Good instinct. The room breathed again once the topic changed. I sat when everyone else sat. My chair made a soft scrape I hadn't noticed before. I stacked my notes, straightened the corners, and waited for the meeting to end because that's what I'd always done. Wait. Clean up. Make it easy for everyone else to move forward. Near the end, he thanked the team without looking up. I nodded once. Like agreement was expected. The pen clicked again. Same sound, same finality. I walked out with the notes still in my hand. They didn't matter anymore, but I hadn't let go yet. Something in me had already stepped back. I could feel it. Not dramatic, just decisive. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. While the events and characters are imagined, the emotions and power dynamics reflect real workplace experiences shared by many. I folded the notes on the hallway table and slipped them into my bag. My reflection in the glass didn't change. The smile was gone. That was new. I headed toward my office, already knowing the next thing I would do. Even if I hadn't said it out loud yet, I didn't plan to quit. That part matters. I walked back to my office and shut the door without slamming it. The printer sat there like it always did. I opened a blank document, typed my name, my role, today's date, resignation. Simple, clean. I hit print. The machine coughed and froze halfway through the page. Paper stuck, ink smeared. I stood there longer than I needed to, watching the error light blink, letting my hands shake where no one could see. When it finally spit the page out, the top line was crooked. I signed anyway. I carried the letter down the hall and set it on his desk. No envelope, no explanation, just paper. The laugh came fast, too fast. It hung in the air and didn't land anywhere. Then it stopped. You're joking, right? I stayed where I was. My hands were empty now. That helped. No. He leaned back, tried the chair like it might rescue him. The smile slid off his face and didn't come back the same. That's impulsive. Probably. The words sat there between us. He picked the letter up, turned it over like there might be something written on the back that fixed this. His fingers tapped the desk. Once. Twice. Slower than the pen earlier. He didn't look at me when he spoke again. We can talk about this. I nodded, because nodding had always been easier than arguing. He took it as permission and kept going. Timing, optics, family, the usual stack. I watched his mouth move and felt the space open where my patience used to be. I'm shaking, not brave. Just done. There's a difference. My head keeps throwing up reasons to stay. Mortgage, history, pride. I let them pass without catching any of them. If you're wondering whether I regretted it right then, yeah, for like 30 seconds. He pushed the letter back toward me, just an inch. Testing. Think about it. I picked it up instead. Folded it once, put it in my bag. The chair scraped when I stood. That sound felt permanent. I left without saying thank you. The door closed behind me. Not loud, not soft, just enough. By the time I reached my office, the doubt had thinned out. Whatever came next would have to happen without my smile holding it together. Monday comes. I'm not there. I wake up early anyway. Habit. My phone buzzes before I finish my coffee. An email lands from Human Resources with a subject line that tries too hard. Smooth transition. Polite words. Calm tone. A paragraph about continuity and teamwork and gratitude. My name appears once. Past tense. By mid-morning, another message slips through. A colleague forwards a photo from the floor, the interns at my old desk, my chair, my folders stacked on the left like I used to keep them. He's smiling at the screen, shoulders squared, like confidence is a posture you can borrow. Around noon, a clip makes the rounds. Short. Someone caught it on their phone. The CEO at the end of a stand-up, palms open, voice steady. We'll be fine. The room nods back at him. In sync, it looks rehearsed. They act calm. Too calm. The kind of calm people use when they're trying not to draw attention to the sound of something cracking under their feet. My inbox keeps chiming. Alerts I forgot to shut off. Vendor updates. System pings. A reminder tagged to my name that should have died with my badge. The subject lines don't care that I'm gone. They keep calling for me like nothing changed. A message pops up from the intern. Short. Careful. He thanks me for setting things up so well. There's a pause bubble. It disappears. Comes back. Disappears again. He never sends the second thought. You ever watch people fake confidence and wonder who they're convincing another alert slides in? Same system. Same routing. My name, bolded by default. I don't open it. I archive it. Then another replaces it. Then another. The sound is soft. But it keeps landing in the same place in my chest. Late afternoon. Someone from finance writes to the group thread asking who approves a routine change. The reply comes quick from management. We've got it covered. No name attached. No answer, either. I turn the auto forward off. The silence that follows feels wrong, like a light switched off in a room that still needs it. I set the phone down and let the quiet sit. Whatever they're holding together, they're doing it without me now. And my name shouldn't be here anymore, but it keeps showing up anyway. It's not a meltdown. It's a delay. That's how it gets described to me later. A pause. A routine approval that doesn't land on time. Nothing dramatic. just enough friction to make people look up from their screens. I hear about it through a voicemail that slips past my silence settings. A vendor contact I recognize by cadence, not name. Fast talker. Always polite when things run smoothly. We usually wait for Matilda. The line hangs there, not accusatory, just factual. A beat. Longer than it should be. She's no longer here. The hesitation gives it away. Not the words. The gap between them. The space where an answer should live and doesn't. Another pause. The kind that makes everyone aware they're on speaker. Okay. The voice says, quieter now. Then who signs off? Nothing follows. No shuffle of papers. No confident interruption. Just air. The call ends without resolution. That's the part that matters, not the question. The ending. My phone buzzes that afternoon while I'm folding laundry. I keep refolding because my hands won't settle. Unknown number. Local. I watch it vibrate itself quiet. I don't answer. I tell myself it's not my problem. I tell myself I've earned the right to let things wait. I check the screen anyway. Old reflex. The voicemail icon lights up. I don't play it. I set the phone face down like that changes anything. At this point, would you have answered? Be honest. Later. Another message comes through. Different voice. Same issue? Approval chain? Timing? They're careful with their words now. No one says my name out loud this time. But it sits there between every sentence. Back at the office, I imagine the intern searching folders he didn't build, tabs he didn't name. He's smart. I know that. But smart isn't the same as knowing where the soft spots are, knowing which delays cost trust and which ones cost money. By evening, the delay is still just a delay. No alarms, no raised voices, but something small has slipped out of alignment. And once that happens, everything else starts to notice. Client meeting, video call. I hear about it later. The first message comes from someone in operations. No greeting. Just a screenshot of a calendar invite marked critical. The second message follows before I can reply. Different sender. Same tone. Short. Tight. Like nobody wants to type the wrong thing. By the time the third message lands, I stop pretending this is coincidence. The intern is presenting. Same deck I built. Same order. Same charts. The slides look right. Familiar enough to pass at a distance. The words don't land. Too smooth. Too shallow. Someone must have noticed. Because the client interrupts. Who designed this system? That's the line everyone keeps repeating to me afterward. Not raised, not sharp, curious, almost polite. There's a pause on the call, long enough for people to shift in their chairs. She's no longer with us. The way it's delivered matters. Flat, defensive, like closing a door that should have stayed open. Another pause. This one heavier. Then who understands it? No one jumps in. No one fills the space. The silence stretches until it stops being technical and starts being personal. The intern looks down at his notes. Someone clears their throat and doesn't speak. The call ends early. Not angry. Not loud. Just unfinished. My phone buzzes a few minutes later. One word from a colleague I trust. Uh-oh. That's when it clicks into place. Not panic. Recognition. The kind you see when someone finally understands what they've been handed isn't complete. Authority can carry you through a room. It can't answer questions it doesn't understand. Another message comes in. This time from the intern. He thanks me for the groundwork. There's a second line typing. It disappears. The typing comes back. Disappears again. He never asks what he actually wants to ask. You can fake authority. You can't fake understanding. By the end of the afternoon, I hear the client has postponed the next phase. Not canceled, just waiting. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for the person who used to be automatic in their process. I set my phone down and don't reach for it again. Whatever they're realizing now, they're realizing it without my help. Emails start stacking up. I don't open them. The first one sits there all morning. Unread. Bolded like it's trying to prove a point. By lunchtime, there are 5 more. Different senders. Same tension. I keep my phone face down and pretend the table is more interesting. Shipments get paused. That's how it's phrased later. Paused. Temporary. A careful word for something nobody wants to own. The vendor doesn't escalate, they don't threaten, they just stop moving things forward. Professional, clean. The client delays expansion the same way. No drama, no accusations. Just a note about reassessing timelines. Timelines are polite. Timelines by distance. Then the intern reaches out. The subject line is small, almost shy. Quick question. I don't respond. Another alert follows before the screen goes dark. Urgent. I still don't touch it. The third one lands harder, like he finally ran out of polite options. Please. The notification sound repeats. Same tone every time. No difference between a calendar reminder and a system failing quietly in the background. I let it ring. I let it stop. I let it ring again. I feel sick. Not proud. That's important. I didn't map this out. I didn't set traps. I just stopped fixing things people assumed I would always fix. There's a difference, even if it doesn't feel clean. A voicemail slips through. I don't listen. Another follows. Shorter. Breathing heavier. I picture him at his desk, refreshing his inbox, trying to look calm while the ground under him shifts a few inches at a time. Is it still revenge if all you do is step back? Later that evening, a new message comes in from someone higher up. No subject line this time. Just text in the body asking for a quick call. I don't answer that either. The quiet has weight now. It presses back. By the end of the day, the alerts stop. Not because things are fixed. Because they've realized no one is coming. The silence isn't empty anymore. It's starting to look like proof. Emergency board meeting? I'm not invited. I find out the way you find out things once you're no longer inside them. A clipped message from legal that lands in my inbox by mistake, then disappears. A follow-up that doesn't. Someone forgot to remove me from a thread. Or decided not to. The agenda is short. Dependencies, continuity, risk, legal goes first. A woman I've met twice. Sharp voice, no filler. She walks through the flow like a checklist that keeps circling the same blank box. Names come up, roles, access, then mine, last, like it's an afterthought that won't stay buried. A pause stretches, paper shifts. No one else knows how to run this. That's the sentence. Clean, undramatic. It lands anyway. Someone tries to soften it, talks about documentation, training, redundancy plans that never made it past draft. The room doesn't pick up the thread. Chairs creak. A cough gets swallowed. The sentence sits there doing its work. I hear later the CEO tried to interrupt, tried to reframe it as temporary. The legal voice cuts through him without raising volume. Dependencies don't care about titles. Dependencies don't respect optimism. I don't feel victorious when I read the notes. I feel tired in a way sleep won't fix. The kind of tired that comes from realizing how much you carried without being asked, how quietly you made it look easy. Have you ever been the problem and the solution at the same time? Another message pings in, this one from operations. The intern has been reassigned. Quietly, no announcement. Someone else asks who will own the gap. No one answers that one. Ownership is a dangerous word when there's nothing left to assign. The meeting ends without applause or next steps. Just a decision to reconvene. Soon. The notes close with a line about urgency that reads like a confession. I close the thread and set my phone down. The system I used to hold together is visible now, stripped down to its bones. They finally said it out loud. And once a thing is named, it can't be unnamed. His name on my phone. I stare at it. I let it ring once. Twice. The vibration stops. Starts again. I don't rush. I take a sip of coffee that's already going bitter. Like I waited too long on purpose. When I answer, he goes straight to the middle. No apology. No clearing his throat. We should talk. The word should lands heavy, like a favor I owe. I don't fill the space. I let him keep going. He talks about timing, pressure, the board being nervous. He says my name like it's a tool he hasn't used in a while and wants to see if it still works. We can figure something out. I look at the mug in my hand. The coffee's gone cold. A thin film on top. I don't bother reheating it. I already did. Silence. Real silence this time. Not the kind people used to think. The kind that means the ground moved and no one announced it. He tries again. Softer. Mentions history. Mentions family without saying the word. The tone shifts. Just enough to signal he's lowering himself a step. He doesn't like that part. I can hear it. I need you back in the room. I don't correct him. I don't explain that the room doesn't matter anymore. I tell him I'm not coming back. Not temporarily. Not to help stabilize things. Not to make it easier for anyone else to land on their feet. My coffee sits untouched while he talks himself into smaller circles. Each sentence shrinks. Each offer loses weight before it finishes. He needs me. That's clear now. Not for who I am, for what I know. For the quiet way things used to work. I don't need to prove anything. Not competence, not loyalty, not restraint. Why do people only soften when the damage is done? The call ends without an agreement. No promises, no threats, just a clean disconnect. I set the phone down and don't pick it back up. Whatever happens next will happen without my voice filling the gaps. They restructure. Quietly, I hear it in pieces. Never all at once. A message from someone in finance who doesn't know how to start. A calendar update that disappears before I can click it. Words like transition and realignment float around without attaching to anything solid. He loses his role before the end of the quarter. Not fired. That word never shows up. The phrasing is gentler. Stepping aside, advising, reduced scope, the kind of language that lets everyone save face while the door closes anyway. The intern vanishes from the floor. No announcement. No goodbye email. I'm told he's been moved into an internal team that doesn't touch clients or systems. A place where enthusiasm can't break anything expensive. I don't feel satisfaction about that, just distance. What surprises me is who reaches out next. Clients find me, not the other way around. One email turns into 3. Short notes, direct. They don't ask what happened. They ask what I'm doing now. They say things like, "We liked how things used to run," without naming who made that happen. I meet one of them for coffee. No pitch, no deck, just a conversation that stays practical. Timelines, expectations, boundaries. When the contract comes over, I read every line out of habit, then sign my name where it belongs. My name, not buried, not implied. The pen feels heavier than it should. I notice that. I'm not healed. That's the truth. Some mornings I still wake up ready to fix a problem that isn't mine anymore. I reach for my phone, then remember there's nothing waiting there. I'm just not invisible anymore. Does winning always feel this unfinished? The days get quieter. No alerts. No forwarded messages. Just work I choose, and silence I didn't earn but keep anyway. I sit with it longer than I expected. Whatever comes next will have to fit into this space, not erase it. I could have returned. That's the truth. The offer came wrapped in careful language and late timing. Short-term support, transition help, a chance to steady things. It sounded reasonable, which is how I knew it wasn't for me anymore. A week later, the project was shut down for good. No announcement, no post-mortem. It just vanished from the internal calendar like it had never mattered. The board moved on fast. New priorities, new names. The kind of efficiency they used to praise when I made it possible. He never called again. That part surprised me more than I expected. I thought there would be a final message. Something sharp. Something small. Instead, nothing. Silence stretched and stayed that way. Whatever version of authority he had left didn't include me anymore. I cleaned out the last traces of that job slowly. Old files, archived threads, one final forwarded alert that had been landing in my inbox out of habit. I hovered over it longer than necessary, then deleted it. The quiet afterward felt earned. I didn't burn anything down. I didn't expose secrets or demand apologies. I just stopped holding it together when it stopped holding me. Some days I wonder who I'd be if I stayed. If I'd swallowed it and kept smoothing edges that cut me. Most days, I don't. The wondering passes quicker now. I still carry parts of that place with me. The reflex to fix, the instinct to stay late. They show up sometimes without asking. I notice them and let them go. Here's the lesson I learned the slow way if something only works because you keep shrinking yourself to make it fit. Walking away isn't failure. It's accuracy. And accuracy, once you recognize it, doesn't ask you to go back. The moment that ended my career didn't come with a warning or a raised voice. It came with a sentence that had clearly been practiced. My father's retired, now it's your turn. I hadn't even finished pulling the chair back. The words landed before my body caught up. Paper slid across the table toward me. Already aligned. Already waiting. No review. No recap. Just the sound of paper against wood and the quiet expectation that I would nod and comply. My name is Clara Whitmore, 52 years old. I remember thinking I'd missed something obvious. A meeting, an email, some tiny mistake that had grown teeth while I wasn't looking. My brain did that thing it always does, started protecting everyone else first. Maybe I'd pushed too hard last quarter. Maybe I'd asked the wrong question in the wrong room. I reached for anything that made this feel earned. I glanced down. Non-disclosure agreement, non-compete, already printed, already tabbed. Someone had planned this. The words came out before I could stop them. Something small and useless about last quarter's numbers. My mouth was working on instinct. Like muscle memory from years of explaining myself, he didn't react. Just tapped the page once. Not hard. Not angry. Like you do when you're reminding someone to sign a receipt. The smell hit me. Then burned coffee. That bitter with stale edge that lingers when someone forgets a pot and keeps moving. It made the room feel careless. Temporary. Like nothing that happened here was meant to last. I looked up. He was calm, but not relaxed. One knee bounced under the table. Fast enough to notice if you knew where to look. His confidence felt borrowed. Rushed. The pen sat between us. I didn't pick it up. That hesitation changed something. Not in the room. In me. A thin line snapped. This wasn't about performance. It wasn't even about control. It was about speed. About getting me out before something else happened. I stood when it was clear no one was going to explain anything. My legs felt a second behind the rest of me. Like I'd stood up too fast and the world hadn't decided if it was going to tilt yet. I walked out with the paper still on the table. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. It explores power, loyalty, and what happens when people confuse silence with weakness. By the time I reached my office, security was already waiting in the hallway. What do you grab when you're given 60 minutes to pack a life you thought was stable? Security was already there when I got back to my office. Not blocking the door, just close enough to remind me this wasn't a misunderstanding. One of them shifted his weight when he saw my face, like he wanted to say something human and couldn't find the opening. I nodded. That seemed to make it easier for everyone. No one looked up as I stepped inside. Keyboards kept clicking. Phones kept ringing. The whole floor pretending nothing was happening. I opened a drawer and started pulling things out fast. Then slowed down. Then sped up again. Notebooks first. The ones with my handwriting. Half ideas. Fixes I never sent as emails. My phone charger. The spare glasses case. I reached for a framed photo and stopped. It felt too personal to carry past a guard. Too much like proving I'd been here. I slid it back into the drawer and shut it harder than I meant to. Cardboard dust clung to my hands. Dry, gritty. I wiped my palms on my skirt and left faint smudges behind. I kept my head down. Kept telling myself not to cry here. Not in this room. Not where he could hear about it later and feel right. Someone hovered in the doorway. A junior analyst? New. He opened his mouth, closed it, then handed me a pen like it was an apology. I took it, put it in my pocket. Didn't thank him. I left behind things I shouldn't have. Reference binders, a backup drive, anything that might look like I was clinging. I swear. Dignity feels overrated when rent is real. But pride still makes dumb calls. The guard cleared his throat. Time. I taped the box shut myself, lifted it. He reached out automatically, then pulled his hand back. Another nod. We walked. As we passed the glass conference room, I saw my reflection. Box against my chest, shoulders stiff, still standing. By the time the elevator doors closed, I understood one thing clearly. Whatever I'd lost in that office, I wasn't allowed to decide yet what mattered. What if the contract meant to shut you up wasn't written for someone like you? I spread the papers across my kitchen table and read them the way I read bad news slow, then slower, then angry at myself for missing things the first time. The coffee beside me went untouched. Cold. I didn't care. Non-disclosure. Fine. Expected. The language was thick, puffed up, trying to sound final. I kept going. Non-compete. That's where my chest tightened. Not panic. Something closer to focus. I read the paragraph again, then again. I traced the sentence with my finger like I was back in school and afraid to lose my place. I can't solicit. Clear enough? No outreach? No announcements? No nudging? I nodded at the page like it had said something sensible. Then I hit the part that didn't try so hard. Nothing about clients leaving. Nothing about choice. Nothing about what happens if the phone rings and it isn't me dialing. That gap sat there. Quiet. Heavy. I pulled my laptop closer and typed non-compete Illinois, even though I already knew the basics. I let the search results load anyway. It felt safer to act unsure. You ever pretend you're clueless just to calm yourself down? I scrolled. Skimmed. Closed it. My phone buzzed. I didn't check it. I flipped back to the first page and read the signature block. His name, printed, confident, like a stamp. I pictured the way he slid the papers across the table. The rush in it, the need to get this done fast. People who are certain don't rush like that. I stacked the pages neatly and set them aside. Didn't sign, didn't tear them up either. Just moved them out of the way like something I'd come back to when it mattered. I rinsed my mug and left it upside down to dry. The house was quiet in that thin, uneasy way. I sat back down and put my phone face up on the table. I decided on one rule. No explaining, no defending, no reaching out to prove anything. Silence felt risky. It also felt clean. Why do people call you when they're scared instead of when they're angry? My phone buzzed against the kitchen table. Once, then again. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. A number I knew by heart. One I hadn't saved under a name because I never needed to. I answered without greeting. A breath on the other end. Too fast, like they'd been holding it. Things feel off. That's how it started. Not a complaint. Not an accusation. Just that word. Off. They talked in fragments. Deadlines slipping for no reason. Emails that didn't answer the question asked. Someone new replying with copied language that didn't fit the situation. I listened and kept my hands flat on the table so I wouldn't start pacing. I cut in before it could go further. I can't advise you. Not officially. Not now. Silence. Thick enough to notice. I added the part that mattered. You should be careful. If something feels rushed or unclear, don't sign it just to keep things moving. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear paper shifting. Maybe notes. Maybe panic. They lowered their voice. Asked if I was available elsewhere. Not today. Not tomorrow. Just available. This is where I almost screw it up. By the way, the words lined up easy in my mouth. Where I was. Who I was with. How much cleaner things could be. I swallowed them back. I didn't answer the question. I said they should do what keeps them protected. I said risk doesn't disappear just because someone tells you to trust the process. The buzz started again when the call ended. Text this time. Then another. The phone kept vibrating like it wanted my attention more than I was ready to give. When they finally spoke again, their voice sounded different. Quieter. Steadier. Like they'd already made a decision and just needed confirmation that it wasn't crazy. They thanked me. Not the polite kind. The relieved kind. I set the phone down and let it buzz itself still. My chest felt tight. Not fear exactly. More like standing at the edge of something and realizing there's no railing. I didn't reach out to anyone else. I didn't document the call. I didn't celebrate. I stayed exactly where I was, waiting to see what would happen next. At what point does coincidence stop being coincidence? Another call came in before I'd finished replaying the last one. Different voice. Same tension. They talked fast. Like speed might fix it. Missed deadlines. A response that didn't answer anything. Someone CC'd who shouldn't have been CC'd. I listened and kept my mouth shut longer than felt polite. By noon, it wasn't a fluke. It was a pattern. A text buzzed from a number I recognized but hadn't saved. Short, Careful. They're pushing hard. No details. Just enough to tell me the temperature had gone up. Then a screenshot landed in my inbox from someone who should have known better. No message. Just the subject line. Bold at the top, containment strategy. I stared at it until my laptop fan started whining like it was about to give up. The body of the email was clipped. Managerial. All verbs and no responsibility. Lockdown access. Centralize responses. Remind clients of contractual obligations. Nothing about fixing what was breaking. A call came through while I was still reading. I let it ring twice. Picked up on the third. They didn't waste time. Legal had warned them about reaching out. There was talk of consequences. Tone sharpened when they said my name, like it was something they'd been told not to touch. I didn't defend myself. I didn't apologize either. I told them to protect their company. I told them pressure isn't a solution. I told them threats don't make errors disappear. The line went quiet. Not disconnected, just heavy. They asked if I was coordinating this, if I'd planned it, if there was some list, some sequence. I felt a flash of anger then, hot, unhelpful. This is the part where people assume I'm plotting. I wasn't. I told them the truth. I said I'd left. I said I hadn't called anyone. I said systems fail when the people who built them are pushed out too fast. The call ended without a goodbye. I closed the laptop and sat there, hands still, listening to the fan wind down. Messages kept coming in. Side texts, half sentences, warnings dressed up as concern. Uneasy settled in my chest. Not guilt, not pride, something sharper. Whatever they were trying to contain, it wasn't me anymore. What does it feel like when someone finally talks to you like an adult again? They didn't call my office because I didn't have one yet. They emailed my personal address, plain subject line. My name spelled right. No logos in the signature. Just a line that mattered we could use you. We met the next morning. No speeches, no promises. A conference table. Coffee that tasted like it had been reheated. And two people who let silence sit without trying to fill it. One of them slid a single page toward me. Role description? Independent. Clean. No overlap. No drama. The terms were boring. That was the point. Advisory work. Boundaries spelled out. No solicitation. No fireworks. They weren't asking me to save them. They were asking me to work. I skimmed, then slowed down. Asked what happens if the other firm starts throwing threats. The answer came quick. They'd handle it. Not bravado. Just a statement of fact. They'd done it before. My mouth moved before my nerves caught up. Yes, it came out too fast. I felt it as soon as it landed. The room didn't change. No one pounced. One of them nodded. Like this was always where the conversation was going. The pen clicked when I signed. Sharp. Final. My hand shook for half a second after. I folded the paper once. Then again, like that might make it less real. Relief hit first, then something messier. Guilt. Maybe. Like I'd stepped onto a lifeboat while the ship was still floating. Like I'd broken a rule I couldn't name. I hate how validation still works on me. One clean offer and my chest loosened like it had been holding its breath all week. They walked me out without ceremony. No welcome speech. No tour. Just a door opening and closing behind me. By the time I got back to my car, my phone was buzzing again. I didn't check it. Not yet. I sat there a moment, hands on the wheel, letting the click of that pen echo in my head. Knowing the ground under me had finally stopped shifting even if no one else knew where I was standing. How many people have to leave before it stops being personal and starts being fatal? The first one didn't announce it. An email arrived with an attachment and no greeting. Termination notice. Polite. Clean. Like it had been drafted by someone who didn't want feelings involved. Then 5 more followed in a week. Different companies. Same structure. No explanation sent to me. No heads up. They didn't call to ask permission or apologize. They just moved. By the time the number turned into something people whispered instead of saying out loud, my inbox sounded different. Notifications stacked so fast my email client lagged. That hollow chime kept repeating, like it was trying to catch up to itself. 31. They didn't arrive together. No dramatic walk-ins, no speeches, just quiet appointments scheduled by assistants who sounded exhausted. Contracts slid across my desk, edges worn from being handled too many times in too few days. Each one came with a short sentence. We need stability. Or, this doesn't feel safe anymore. One of them tried to explain, started listing mistakes, stopped halfway through, hands shook as the pen hovered. They signed anyway. Another leaned back and stared at the ceiling for a long moment before standing up. That was it. No goodbye. Just a nod like we both understood the math. I kept my voice even, reviewed terms, clarified boundaries. No victory laps. No smiles. The work piled up and so did the responsibility. Every signature added weight, not pressure, gravity. I thought I'd feel powerful. I mostly felt tired. A message came through from someone still inside the old firm. Short, no punctuation. They're losing control. I didn't respond. By the end of the week, my calendar was full and my hands ached from signing. Not from effort, from consequence. Whatever was breaking over there wasn't subtle anymore, and I was done pretending it had anything to do with me. What do you do when the apology finally arrives too late to matter? The call came late afternoon. Unknown number. I let it ring once, twice. Answered on the third, because that's still who I am. He used my name like it was a lever. Slow, familiar, like he expected it to move something in me. He didn't waste time. Said he'd been briefed. Said things had gotten out of hand. Said my departure hadn't been handled with care. The words came in a careful order, polished enough to slide past blame. Then the offer started. Title first, bigger than before. Authority spelled out. A division with my name on it. Promises stacked like cushions. He kept adding them when I didn't react. Like volume might work if meaning didn't. I waited, let him fill the space. He talked about restoring trust, about fixing what his son had broken, about how fast things could turn around if I stepped back in. My hand tightened around the phone. Not anger, not fear. A dull pressure. Like holding something too heavy for too long. I told him no. Not a speech. Not a list. Just no. He tried again. Softer this time. Mentioned legacy. Said the firm was more than one mistake. Said we could clean this up together. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't correct him. I said I wasn't coming back. That I'd already made my choice. That I wouldn't be the thing they leaned on to keep standing. He started another sentence. I ended the call. My hand shook after. Enough to notice. I set the phone down and stared at it like it might ring again and undo what I'd done. I didn't feel brave. I felt empty. The quiet after was different from before. Heavier. Settled. Like something had finally landed and decided to stay there. I took a breath and went back to work. How fast can something rot when it was already cracked? It didn't explode all at once. It sagged. Slipped. Then started dropping pieces in public. The first lawsuit hit on a Monday. A client I recognized by the phrasing alone. Careful. Exact. The kind of complaint written by people who had waited long enough to be sure. By Wednesday, there were more. Different firms. Same allegations. Missed disclosures. Bad guidance. Silence where answers should have been. A contact from finance sent a single line. Credit pulled. No explanation attached. They didn't need one. When lenders get nervous, they don't argue. They retreat. The board moved next. Emergency meeting. Closed doors. Leaks anyway. A junior associate I barely knew texted me late that night. Just the word removed, followed by a period. Like punctuation mattered. The CEO's son didn't give a statement at first. When he finally did, it was short and wrong. He blamed market conditions. Blamed misunderstanding. Blamed timing. None of it stuck. The press smelled it immediately. I saw him on television once. The volume was too loud in the empty office, and I didn't bother turning it down. He stood stiff in front of microphones. Jaw tight. Eyes darting when questions came too fast. Someone asked why so many clients had left at once. Someone else asked why untested leadership had been put in place so quickly. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Tried again. The answers didn't land. You could see it. The pause after each one grew longer, heavier. That's where truth leaks out. When there's nothing left to say that helps, I turned the television off halfway through. Sat there longer than I meant to. Not satisfied. Not relieved. Just distant. I kept waiting to feel victorious. It didn't come. What settled instead was something quieter. A sense that whatever had been holding that place together had finally been taken away, and the structure couldn't pretend anymore. I went back to my desk and answered emails. The work didn't slow. It never does. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a thought kept tapping. Not guilt, not pride, just an awareness that absence can be an action too. Whether you intend it or not, what happens when you stop holding something together and walk away? The filing went public on a Thursday morning. Bankruptcy, reorganization. Words people use when they don't want to say collapse. My phone lit up before I finished my first cup of coffee. Alerts, links. Someone had circled my name in an article like it explained everything. Requests came in fast. Reporters, former colleagues, people who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly remembered my number. They wanted statements, context, closure. I declined all of it. Not rudely, just clearly. Silence felt earned at this point. Work kept moving. It always does. Meetings, reviews, decisions that actually mattered to the people in the room. No chaos, no scrambling. Just problems getting solved in the right order. That difference was louder than any headline. Late one night, I was still at my desk. The hum of the office, HVAC filling the space where noise used to live. A junior associate stopped by, hesitant, holding a file too tightly. She said she'd followed the news, said she was sorry, said she hoped I was okay. I nodded, took the file, asked her what she needed. She relaxed a little when the conversation stayed where it belonged. Some days, I still second-guess things. The timing, the call I didn't take, the door I didn't walk back through. That doubt doesn't mean regret. It means I understand the cost. I didn't break that company. I also didn't save it. What stopped working wasn't me. It was the idea that one person could be removed without consequences, that loyalty could be cut clean and nothing would bleed. Here's the lesson I'm still living with when you build something for years and people treat you like a replaceable part. The strongest move isn't fighting to stay. It's choosing to leave and letting them learn what you were quietly carrying the whole time. I don't know if it was the right choice. I know it was mine, and once I made it, everything finally told the truth.